Best books of 2023 according to your favorite booktubers. Now guys, you know the drill. I do this video every 6 months and I'm so excited for this edition to have been able to bring so many booktube creators from all across booktube to come and share their favorite book of this year. And before we start, I just wanted to give a special thanks to all the booktubers that were able to send a clip to me. I really appreciate it. And please everyone, go in the description down below and subscribe to every single one of them because they're all amazing. But without further ado, let's get into it.
Just like last year, Viking wants me to spoil my book of the year, but if you watch the channel at all, guys, you know it's not really a secret. Lonesome Dove, without a doubt, was the best book that I read this year. I don't feel like I even really got to tell you why, because I feel like anyone who has read this book will tell you it's one of the greatest books they've ever read. It's just an amazing, amazing character story. I think that Larry McMurtry does slice of life and character development as well as the best I've ever seen, even up there with Stephen King. I think this guy was absolutely amazing. It was one of those stories where you sit around and be like, wow, they just spent a whole 40 pages talking about what names to put on a sign, and it was mesmerizing. You couldn't get enough of it. So I'm not really much into Westerns, guys, but from now on, I think that the bar for what I expect in a Western is going to be raised a little bit. That's why I think I'm just going to be sticking with what Larry McMurtry did and reading Streets of Laredo next. But yeah, without a doubt, guys, book of the year, Lonesome Dove, one of the best books I've ever read. Pick it up immediately.
Libraryofaviking, Johan, thank you for having us on. We're the guys at Two to Ramble. Maybe, hey, we're the guys from Two.
We're not doing that.
Okay. I was going to have you say Two, then Ramble.
I understand. It's not a question of understanding. It's a question of willingness.
So what was your favorite book 2023?
I only read one book this year that actually came out in 2023 because I've been reading the backlog. Mm-hmm. But I read Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. And it was a great book.
You read one more book from 2023 you're forgetting. We are both catching up. We're reading books that came out before 2023. You know what book? And you like it a lot. Shout out to you, Stephen Gugelich, an indie author who published
That's fair.
Piercing the Veil. It is an indie book, and it's very timely with the Christmas theme. I don't want to spoil too much. I
feel it's deservedly so now. It centers around a very Christmas-themed plot, and it was a really unique take on fantasy and Christmas.
It's not as well known because it is an indie book, but we'll be the first to say we had him on our podcast. Great guy. Really impressive debut novel.
Definitely agree. You got to check him out.
Thanks for having us on.
Hey, my name's Jed Herne. I'm the author of several fantasy novels, and I also run a YouTube channel where I talk about the craft of fantasy writing. And my favorite book from 2023 is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is a brilliant fusion of Hong Kong gangster movies mashed up with this really inventive magic system where Jade gives you power and prestige, but also might drive you insane. And what I love most about this book is just how everything interweaves together so seamlessly. The story is set in Janloon, this really gritty, humid, Asian-inspired metropolis, and it reminded me so much of when I lived in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and is the perfect backdrop for this Shakespearean sort of war between these two gangs that really forces the characters to question ideas about legacy and honor and family and power. And the characters themselves are just so gritty and complex and absolutely fascinating and riveting to watch. So I'm really excited to see how Fonda Lee continues this on in books 2 and 3 in the series.
Out of the 86 fantasy books that I've read this year, the best one so far, it's The Will of the Many. This is a story that made me resent having all the plans. I was so addicted to this story, I was not able to put it down. It has this Roman Empire setting. At its core is a story that it's very similar to Red Rising, but in my opinion, better. We have this military academic setting where we will follow this main character that will need to understand how the society works and potentially tear it down. The magic system here, it's fascinating because it's built upon layers and layers and layers in the society. At its top, we have the most powerful, but they are so because they rely on the people underneath. And there are two action scenes that are so phenomenal that I'm still not able to forget them. The ending will get you down the rabbit hole of madness, trying to understand what is happening. You won't be able to forget it.
Alright, but what is Libraryofaviking's favorite read of 2023? Now this was very hard because I read some absolutely incredible books, but I'm actually going to choose two, so I'm cheating here. But the first one is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I read this book in less than 24 hours. This is a sci-fi thriller and it is just absolutely brilliant. It honestly has some of the best pacing I've ever come across in the whole genre. A surprising amount of emotional moments and just the plot twists are a chef's kiss. I absolutely love this book and everyone should read it. It's a standalone, so you literally have no excuse. The other book is The Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. This absolutely chunk of a book. I think it's around 1,000 pages. But if you are looking for something that is fresh to the fantasy genre, then you need to pick up the Dandelion Dynasty. Now this is book 2, but this book just takes everything that was good with Grace of Kings and just improves upon it in every single aspect. I mean, this book is a masterpiece, 5 out of 5 stars for sure, and really more people need to check out Ken Liu.
Hey there, I'm Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and over on my channel I read a catastrophe of different genres and age audiences. I love to read a little bit of everything. But I'm here to tell you about one of my favourite reads of 2023, and that has to be Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. It's an Afrofuturist fantasy, desert fantasy book, I should say, where she talks about what it means to feel like an outsider, other, and an outcast, and this evil force that's at bay, and what a black woman will do to protect herself. I love the book, it's fascinating, the world building is immaculate, the relationship and the connection, the friendships are done so very well, and I adore the book for all that it is.
Hi Johan, thank you so much for inviting me to your YouTube channel. Again, I'm happy to be back to do this annual video with you. So you asked me what's my favorite book of the year 2023. Now the year is not over yet. There is still some possibility that this might change, but if not, then I think I will have to choose The Will of the Many by James Arlington to be my favorite book of the year. I read this in March 2023, and I have always been a fan of the Lycanius trilogy by James Arlington, but this one somehow becomes my favorite book by James Arlington, and that's saying a lot. I consider this the best coming-of-age fantasy book I read since The Name of the Wind. It is that good, and yeah, this is my pick for my favorite fantasy book of the year 2023.
What's shaken? My name's Cam from the channel Wolf the Story Nomad. If you haven't heard of the subgenre of fantasy fiction called Lit RPG, then you should check it out. And I would recommend starting with He Who Fights Monsters. In as few words as possible, I would describe Lit RPG as the middle ground between a fantasy RPG video game and the books that we're used to. He Who Fights Monsters is a super fun series from Shirtaloon. It's about an Aussie, oh no, I'm biased, who finds himself transported from his retail job in the normal world into a world of magic and monsters. It may sound like the premise for like a kid's book, but it's definitely not. This is a super fun serial series where you get to see a very normal dude trying to be good while his powers get progressively more and more powerful and more sinister. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Viking. Always a pleasure.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and my channel is Ravenhairedreader. My best book of 2023 was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I was completely blown away by this book. I had actually never read a sci-fi before I picked up Project Hail Mary, but it absolutely changed my life. I was so entertained by Andy Weir's writing. He keeps the action moving, he keeps the adventure going. We are on this wild journey with Ryland in space. The stakes could not be higher, but Andy Weir is able to keep this level of humor and banter in his writing that I just find so compelling. I also love the focus on friendship in this book. One of the most beautiful friendships I have ever read about develops in this story, and it warmed my heart so much. I was laughing while reading this book, I was crying while reading this book, and I was just thoroughly entertained by this fascinating plot. These science elements were fantastic, and I honestly think this is a perfect book. I don't care what your preferred genre is, I feel like everyone should read this, and this is a book that will stick with me, I think, for the rest of my life.
Hello, Johan. Thank you for inviting me to tell you about my favorite read of 2023, and it happens to be a book that was published in 2023, The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence, and I have here an arc of the book, which is the first in the Library trilogy. I loved this book for the characters, for the library setting, I mean, what book lover wouldn't love that, but also for the masterful incorporation of themes that you have in The Book That Wouldn't Burn. There are just some really brilliant, timely themes woven into this story, and it had me on the edge of my seat. It had me wanting to reread the book as soon as I finished it. That's how awesome it was.
My favorite book of 2023 is a book I only learned about and then became my favorite book within the same week, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now, this book is ridiculous. A very basic premise is the world is taken over by aliens. But instead of killing the human race, they gather them up and put them on this alien survival TV show. With the promise, if you survive the TV show, you will be let free into the universe. Even from that premise, you can kind of get that the tone is ridiculous. It's really, really funny. And it is a lit RPG series, which means there are game-like mechanics in the book, such as the main character has a level and individual skills, which he can increase by killing monsters. It's a ton of fun. It's completely ridiculous, and the audiobooks are...
Hello, my name is Andrew Givler. I'm an urban fantasy author. I'm also a booktuber known as Givreads, and my day job is I play video games on YouTube under the channel Sigils. I wear a lot of hats, like this one. My favorite Viking hit me up asking me what my favorite book of the year was, and I had to think about it for a little while, but I finally settled on an answer, although it was not easy. But for me, my favorite book of the year was Lightbringer by Pierce Brown, the 6th book in the Red Rising series. For me, this book was really special because it sort of brought the second series in, not for a landing because there's still one more book in the series, but it showed the vision and the journey of what Pierce Brown is trying to do with the second trilogy or quadrilogy of Red Rising, and I think it's incredible. The payoff is 100% worth it. It is beautifully written. It is a beautiful story. I love the heroism and the way the characters have to evolve. Just incredible. I can't gush about it enough. Also, shout out to Nerdy Ink. This is the cover, a custom cover that they have, which is just gorgeous. I love it. If you haven't read it, go read Red Rising. You won't be disappointed.
Hi everyone, my name's Nickelle from Nickelle's Nook. Thank you so much for Libraryofaviking for allowing me to be part of this video. Today I'm going to be sharing my favourite book of 2023, and it's Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adesanya. This book is insane. I read this a couple of months ago and I still think about it. It's brilliant. So this is a sci-fi dystopian read, and it's set within the American prison system where the death penalty has been eradicated, and a program has been put in place where prisoners can take part if they don't want to do the rest of their sentence in prison. So essentially the program is that prisoners will fight each other to the death and move up the ranks in the competition in order to be freed. So this is a televised competition. So people are paying and buying merch and everything to watch these prisoners kill each other. It's very sick, twisted, it's dark. It highlights the corruption and neo-slavery within the prison system itself. There's topics of race, and there's also a bit of romance in there. So this book is for everybody, so I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's just fantastic. So if that kind of sounds like your thing, maybe you should have a read.
Libraryofaviking, thank you so much for having me be part of this video. It's truly an honor. To think about the greatest or the best book that I've read this year, it has to be The Stand, hands down. Stephen King, that book was not only humongous in page count and in scope, but it was just everything that I was looking for in a post-apocalyptic setting from Stephen King. He's quickly become my favorite author this year, and The Stand was cream of the crop, top pickings for me out of all the things that I've read from him. But a close second that I keep thinking about is Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy. That story was everything that I wanted from a well-rounded novel and more. It had everything. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me angry, it made me scared, it made me fist bump when things went right, it made me cry out when things went badly, and it had so many incredible twists and turns to it. It's a beautiful, beautiful story about family and abuse, but also love and redemption and reconciliation and atonement, and it's the perfect novel. It is a perfect novel, and whenever I think of my favorite book of the year, I think of Prince of Tides along with The Stand. So that hopefully that answers the question, but thank you so much for having me a part of this.
Hi, I'm Brittany from the channel Books with Brittany, and if I had to choose one book for a favorite from the year 2023, this is so hard, but I feel like it would have to be The Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. Technically, I would like to say the entire Dandelion Dynasty. So the series as a whole would definitely be my absolute favorite thing that I read throughout the year, but if I can only pick one book out of this series, I think that this book was really perfection to me. The pacing was perfect, the plot development, the characterization, the world building elements, the philosophical elements. Ken Liu is a master of what he does, and so I think that these books are perfection to me.
Hi, Libraryofaviking. I'm Liene from Liene's Library. And choosing a favorite book for 2023 was more difficult than it should have been. It was kind of a weird reading year. I did a lot of rereading. I didn't love a lot of the books that I read that I'd never read before this year. So it was kind of hard to choose. That being said, I'm quite certain about the choice that I did make, and that is Citadel of the Autarch by Gene Wolfe, which is the 4th book in the Book of the New Sun. I read the Book of the New Sun as a project with my patrons this year, and the conclusion was my favorite installment. The way that the Book of the New Sun gets kind of, I don't want to say wrapped up, because Gene Wolfe likes to leave things very open-ended, very confusing. He likes to imply rather than state outright, which is my preference. Book of the New Sun is a dying Earth story that is absolutely brilliant in my opinion. It is not for everyone. It is complex with insane world building, very beautiful but complex prose. I really enjoyed reading it. Each of the installments I had like a slight issue with. The 4th and final installment, Citadel of the Autarch, I think really stuck the landing, and I thought about it for months after, and I can't wait to reread it. So that's gonna have to be my choice for favorite book of 2023. But thanks so much for including me in this video, and happy reading for next year.
Fantasy readers often bemoan the fact that there are not a lot of great fantasy standalones out there, at least not enough of them. Well, my favorite book of the year is a fantasy standalone from an author that almost exclusively writes fantasy standalones. This is an author that many consider the best of his generation, but I don't hear talked about a lot on BookTube. The author, Guy Gavriel Kay. The book, A Song for Arbonne. Now, Kay's brand of fantasy is a lot different. The magic is very minimal, and he doesn't often employ large set pieces and big battle sequences and things like that. But what he does give you is he gives you some of the best, most memorable world building that you'll get in the genre, often steeped in Earth's past. In the case of A Song for Arbonne, it's based in France in the Middle Ages. Kind of. And you get memorable characters, you get some of the best prose style you'll read anywhere, and picture perfect plotting. My goodness, a Guy Gavriel Kay book is so perfectly plotted. A Song for Arbonne is a book that kept me glued to the pages from beginning to end, and frankly is a book that made me remember why I love to read.
My name is John Minton, and we are celebrating here at Talking Story because we are on Library of a Viking's channel. Let the pigeons loose. This means we have made it as a booktuber. I gotta go. My favorite read, 2023, Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. This was everything I wanted from the penultimate book in the Red Rising saga. We've got an unwavering look at combat and the cost of war to society. We've got themes like, where is this society going? Does it even deserve to make it? Themes like duty, honor, brotherhood, family. We've got the never-ending pulse-pounding pace and action that Pierce Brown brings book after book. And in this one, he actually slows down for some heartbreaking character moments, as well as a spiritual journey for Darrow, where he has to look back and take stock on the decisions and the mistakes he's made of the past and own them, be comfortable in his own skin, gird himself with this self-knowledge and be ready for what lies in the future. This was everything I was hoping for and more, and that's why my best read of 2023 has got to be Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. Thank you so much. My name is John Minton, and this has been Talking Story.
I'm so excited to share my favorite book of the year with you guys. I'm Covers with Cassidy if you don't know who I am, and my favorite book, I think, right now is The Providence of Fire by Brian Staveley. This is the second book in the Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne series, and to be honest, I binged this series in like 2 weeks. The whole series is incredible and a new favorite of mine. The second book really does stand out for me because it made me really root and care for the characters. This has some of my favorite characters I've ever read, specifically a favorite female MC I've ever read before. Gwenna's POVs in this were something special to me. I really loved her character and her arc and her journey. The world building in this is so well done. It's very expansive but felt very natural to learn about. There's so much politics in this, pieces being moved on the chessboard, and just overall, this was such an incredible, amazing experience, and I need more people to read it and pick it up and scream from the rooftops with me about it, because this was something special in my opinion, and will be going down as one of my favorite trilogies that I've read. Thanks again for asking me to be a part of this.
Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Now, if you want to support what I do here, then I do have a Patreon. Now, a reason why I created a Patreon was to find a new way to reinvest to the channel, because basically since I created my Patreon, Patreon, I spent around 100% of my earnings to hire an editor to do a couple of videos for me a month. Now since creating my Patreon, an editor has done more than 20 videos for me on my channel, so it makes a huge difference. Now if you join my Patreon, you will also get some benefits. For example, you'll get a name in my videos like these guys. You'll also be able to join the exclusive Viking book club where every month we read one book together, and you might be the one to put the book forward. This month we're reading this book, and next month we're reading this book. You also get to vote on my next read, get access to exclusive videos like a wrap-up or even book reviews, and so much more. But this is totally voluntary, but all support is much appreciated.